Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, and welcome to my very first Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom video. Now, I've actually never covered a Nintendo game on my channel before, so this is the first time I'm ever making a video about a Nintendo game. So I actually had a lot of fun making this video, so hopefully you guys really enjoy it. But in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys some early game tips and tricks to help you get off to the best start possible in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, out of curiosity, I went and watched a couple other tips and tricks videos from some other YouTubers, and I noticed a lot of the tips that some people were giving are at like the 10+ hour mark in the game, and there's no videos giving tips about the beginning of the game. Now, Tears of the Kingdom is absolutely massive, and it's going to take you a very long time to beat it, especially if you're like me and you like to take your time and you like to explore and experience everything that the game has to offer. Well, at the very beginning of the game, there's a starting area that essentially acts as a tutorial. And for those of you that are just jumping into Tears of the Kingdom, maybe you didn't play Breath of the Wild, or maybe it's been a couple years since you've played a Zelda game and you need a refresher, the beginning area of the game can definitely be overwhelming to those of you that aren't used to this style of gameplay. Now, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom does not hold your hand. They give you an objective and they say go do it. As soon as the game opens up, they just tell you what needs to be done, but they don't really tell you how to go about doing so, and it's up to you to figure that out. So I compiled a bunch of tips to help you guys out with this beginning area. These are going to be some very beginner level tips, but after watching this video, hopefully you guys are better prepared. So for starters, like I said, they don't really explain to you where to go. You just kind of have to go off exploring and figure it out on your own. But what I found is that the map is actually designed for you to work your way around counterclockwise. So I made the mistake of just wandering off exploring. I got completely lost and it was very frustrating. I didn't know what to do. So to avoid the mistake that I made, just make your way around counterclockwise around the map. Now, I'm sure there's ways that you can skip around and avoid some areas of this map completely, but the way that the developers have this area set up is that they want you to make your way counterclockwise because they have a bunch of little tutorials sprinkled in throughout your entire path. So the next tip is while you're on your journey, you're going to see a lot of these little robot creatures. Now, while you're in this starting area of the game, you're going to want to kill every single enemy that comes across your path. Now, I made the mistake of skipping past a lot of the enemies. I was a little rusty on my combat skills, so I just didn't bother with some of the enemies, but trust me, you're going to need every single resource that they drop because a lot of the resources that these starting enemies drop you actually use as a type of currency, which I'll go over more here in a little bit. So the next tip I have for you all is once you unlock the Ultra Hand ability, this is the ability that lets you pick up items. This is what you use to do a lot of the building, solve a lot of puzzles. This is going to be one of your most used abilities in the entire game. But one thing I realized that came in super handy is that you can actually use the Ultra Hand to bring different resources to you. So for example, if an item is just out of reach, maybe it's some apples, maybe it's a plant, or if you're trying to kill some fish, it is a lot easier to collect your fish using the Ultra Hand ability than it is to jump in the water and physically swim after and collect your fish. So when you're out exploring and you see an item that's just out of reach, just remember you can always pick it up with your Ultra Hand. So the next tip is very simple, but remember to keep some sort of stamina food on you at all times. You are going to be using the stamina meter throughout your entire playthrough. You use stamina for literally everything, jumping, climbing, swimming, you name it, and everything you do is going to drain your stamina meter. So I couldn't tell you how many times I was climbing or swimming and I was just about to run out of stamina. And if you run out of stamina when you're climbing, then obviously you're going to fall to your death. If you run out of stamina while you're swimming, then you drowned. So it's always a good idea to keep some sort of stamina food in your inventory at all times. That way, if you see your stamina is getting dangerously low, you can just go into your pause menu, eat your food item, and then immediately get your stamina back to give you just enough to climb or swim to safety. So the next tip that I have for you all is to avoid the mistake that I made of just skipping over certain areas thinking that you had to come back later. There was a number of different times in the starting area that I came across a cave, and I just thought, well, maybe there's an ability I unlock later on, and I have to backtrack and come back later. Now, luckily, I made this mistake, so you don't have to, but trust me, every puzzle you come across in the starting area, you can beat with the tools lying around. There's going to be quite a few puzzles in this area that just appear that you're not going to be able to beat it. But one thing I really love about this game is that if you come across something, the developers give you the tools necessary to beat whatever puzzle it is. So if you come across a cave or a weird looking building puzzle, just take a step back, look at the environment around you, and see if the developers left any clues or any pieces that you can put together to help you beat a certain scenario. Which segues me perfectly into the next tip, which is to think outside of the box. So with Tears of the Kingdom, we have this new building mechanic where we use our Ultra Hand and we can just combine different objects that we find in the environment. And with this, there's a number of different ways you can go about solving puzzles. There's no surefire way that you have to complete a puzzle, which in my opinion is really, really cool. Every single person is going to have a different way that they solve puzzles, depending on what kind of weird object you want to build. For example, there was a couple areas that I couldn't for the life of me figure out what to do. So I just built some sort of weird contraption to get me to a place that I wouldn't normally be able to access. For example, there were some cliffs that I needed to climb because I knew there was a chest at the top. So I just cut down a bunch of trees, stuck all the trees together, and then turned them into a giant ladder and just climbed up all the tree trunks. Now, I highly doubt that this was the way that you were supposed to do it. I'm sure there was a hidden path that I just didn't find. But in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you get rewarded for thinking outside of the box like this. I found a number of hidden chests that I wouldn't have normally found if I didn't decide to go off the beaten path. So if you're trying to figure out some sort of puzzle or get to a new location that you couldn't normally reach, don't feel bad for taking a creative approach. Another example I had was I tried to cross a river and I'm sure they wanted you to build a boat, but instead I just made a really long bridge. So there are just so many different ways you can get creative in Tears of the Kingdom, so don't be afraid to experiment. So the next tip I have for you all is that it's a good idea to carry a blunt weapon, a sharp weapon, and an expendable weapon on you at all times. Now what I mean by this is that there's a scenario where you're going to need every type of weapon. For example, if you want to cut down a tree, you're going to need something sharp. If you want to cut a rope, you need something sharp. You can't use a blunt weapon to cut down ropes or break down trees. And then the opposite goes for breaking up boulders or breaking large crates. You can't use a sharp weapon to break open a crate or to break down a wall or crush open some boulders. And then same goes for using expendable weapons. In this game, there's a lot of mechanics such as turning on different fans. You're going to be powering on fans all the time to solve certain puzzles. And to do that, you have to smack the fan to activate it. Unfortunately, every time you hit the fan though, that is going to eat away at your weapon's durability. Now, I made the mistake early on of using whatever weapon was in my hand to activate the fans. And if you have a really good weapon, you don't want to waste the durability of it by smacking a fan to activate it. You're going to want to use just a stick or a club or something expendable. So when I'm playing, I always make sure to carry a blunt weapon such as a hammer, a sharp weapon such as a sword or a dagger, and then an expendable weapon such as a branch or a tree trunk. And then circling back to the tip I gave you guys earlier about killing the starting enemies and how you're going to need their resources, you're going to come across a lot of these giant gumball machines throughout your playthrough. Now these giant gumball machines are very important because they drop different Zonai devices. Now these are different devices that you can use throughout your playthrough. These drop portable fans, they drop portable cooking pots, they drop portable gliders. There's a bunch of different Zonai devices that you can get throughout the game. Now to activate the gumball machine, you're going to have to use some of your resources as a currency. You need construct horns and Zonai charges. And conveniently, you get these by defeating all of the robot creatures that you find up here in the starting area. So like I said, definitely kill every single robot creature that you come across. Farm them if you have to, because you are going to need every last resource that they drop. And these Zonai devices are actually useful in a number of different ways. I like to keep them for a number of different reasons. For example, a portable cooking pot has a number of different uses. Now the obvious use is to make food on the go wherever you're at, but what I like to do is if I'm in an area and I need a blunt weapon for some reason and I don't have one, or maybe my blunt weapon broke and I'm in serious need of having a blunt weapon, you can just drop down a portable cooking pot and then fuse the cooking pot to whatever weapon you have, and then boom, suddenly you have yourself a blunt weapon. So you're definitely going to want to buy as many of these Zonai devices as you can before you start on the real adventure. So the next tip I have for you all is that in this starting area, there's actually this little zone over here where you face one of the very first bosses in the entire game. Now, if you're like me, I saw this giant creature and I thought I was just completely underprepared for it, and I didn't want anything to do with it because I just didn't think I stood a chance. But that is not the case. You can, in fact, beat this creature. I know you're only going to have 3 hearts at this point, and it is going to seem a bit intimidating, but you can actually use your Ultra Hand ability to take out this boss pretty easy. So when you start start this boss encounter, just use your Ultra Hand, pick out the primary cube that is the power source for the boss, and then you can just pull out that individual cube and then attack it over and over and over, and that is the surefire way that you can kill this boss. And then once you defeat the boss, don't forget its material that it drops. You can actually combine this with one of your weapons and make a pretty sturdy and reliable early game weapon. And then the final tip that I have for today's video is to think smarter, not harder when it comes to fighting enemies. For example, take a look around the environment before you engage in combat. Sometimes you might find a boulder or some leaves on the ground you can catch on fire, or just something in the environment that you can use to your advantage to take out enemies without having to even engage in combat. And since all your weapons in this game can break, you're going to want to save every little bit of durability that you can. So that is going to do it for all of my beginning tips and tricks to give you guys the best possible start in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The beginning area for me took me about 7 to 8 hours to beat because I was going around doing pretty much everything. And I know it can be very overwhelming, especially to those of you that never played Breath of the Wild. This game does not hold your hand, they just expect you to figure stuff out, which in my opinion is most of the fun, but sometimes you just get stuck and you need a little bit of extra help. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up, it's greatly appreciated. I'm going to be making a ton of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom videos going forward. So if you don't want to miss out on anything Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and that is going to do it for me, guys, and I will talk to you all in the next video.